Okay. All right, Peter, if I might ask you to hit the next slide for me, that would be awesome. So as I thought about today's passage of Scripture from John 6:56 through 69, what struck me most out of this was, was what Jesus said in verse 67 to the disciples. Where is this? So Jesus asked the 12, "Do you also wish to go away? Do you also wish to go away?" Or, do you want to leave too? Do you want to leave too? And I can just imagine how hard that was for Jesus, right? He had all of these followers going after him, like, "Hey, yeah, Jesus, we think you're awesome. You're great. We're following. We think this is going to be awesome." And then all of a sudden, many of them go away. Many of them say, "Well, you know what? I don't think this is quite my thing here, Jesus. I'll talk to you later," when in fact they really don't want to talk to you. Like if they were to see Jesus at Walmart, they would take the other aisle, right? I mean, back in Wyoming where April and I used to minister, we were there for almost 2 decades, and there were a lot of people who left the church, right? And seeing them at Walmart, which was the only place to go, it was very uncomfortable when you would meet them in the aisle. And I can imagine that's the way it was for Jesus. These people that he thought were his close followers, his close allies, his friends who had his back, all of a sudden decided that, you know what, this is not for me. And Jesus says, "Do you want to leave too? Do you want to leave too?" I suppose if we were, romanticizing this whole idea of Jesus, we would think, well, Jesus never had any problems, right? Everything was just really great for Jesus. And, well, it's just not true, right? This was a point where Jesus felt very, I'm sure, Jesus being fully human, felt very abandoned by some followers. And he turns to his 12, the closest people around him, and says, "Do you want to leave too?" And those were good questions for us to hear today. The first one that Becky read for us, does this offend you? And do you want to leave too? Does this offend you? And do you want to leave too? Now, Stubborn Love, the title for today, I was listening to Pandora this past week, and the song by the Lumineers came on, Stubborn Love. I thought, hey, that's a great title. Stubborn Love, right? Because when Jesus asks us, "Do you want to leave too? Does this offend you?" Stubborn love should be our answer. Stubborn love should be our answer. Now, let's go back in time to this event with Jesus and these followers. It wasn't that they were confused. They weren't like, "Wow, this Jesus guy is just so confusing. I think I'm going to go home." No. It was that they understood fully just what he was asking. Jesus had shown them the end game that he was heading for. It wasn't that they were confused. It was that they understood in a moment of clarity. And the thing is, guys, they had made a choice out of impulse. They had made a choice out of, "Oh, well, this should be awesome. Let's get all in." And then they had follower's remorse. Have you ever had buyer's remorse? I mean, I've had buyer's remorse a lot, especially after we buy houses. I don't understand that. We've purchased 2 in our life together, April and I, and every time I'm like, man, we just bought a house. Buyer's remorse. These guys had follower's remorse because they got into the game thinking that Jesus was going to be just like they wanted him to be, and then, oh, wait a minute, you're not quite what I thought. Or you have this way that I don't really want to go, and I'm changing my mind. And off they go. He made them very uncomfortable, and they bailed. And so, church, fast forward 2,000 years to this day, to this time, this hour, Jesus makes us uncomfortable. If he is who he says he is, he makes us uncomfortable. Not because, oh, it's so lovey-dovey, but because he is exactly who he says he is. And if he is who he says he is, that challenges me and everything about me. If Jesus is the crucified and risen one, if Jesus is is the risen one who reigns at the right hand of God right now, then that Jesus claims every part of me, and that makes me uncomfortable. Because that means my choices are challenged. My very being is challenged. My words are challenged. My thoughts are challenged. My wallet is challenged. Everything about me is challenged. Oh, Peter, might you hit number 2 slide, please? I totally forgot about that. We are made uncomfortable if Jesus is who he says he is, because he puts radical claims on us. Jesus isn't just this thing we made up to make ourselves nice, to be nice and put the kids to bed at night. This is brutal, gruesome stuff if you really think about it, because this is radical challenge to everything. This challenges people. This challenges my hobbies. This challenges everything about me. And either Jesus is who he says he is, and we follow, allowing for the uncomfortable, or we bail, because Jesus is a lie. And stubborn love is what keeps us close in when we meet those uncomfortable times. You don't have to raise your hand, but let's see if anybody ever been confronted by Jesus and made uncomfortable with something? I know I have, yeah. Yeah, it happens quite often. I bet our youth group kids that have been on missions could raise their hand and say, I really met something that made me uncomfortable at one point. So, Peter, if we might have the next one. If we believe Jesus is the Christ and all of these things are true about him, that we say are true, then we need to practice stubborn love. We need to be that's what love is, for and with someone. We need to be for and with God. God is for and with us. The entire pages of the book are about God being for and with really stupid people. For and with, okay? Now, when we practice stubborn love in return with God, we need to, number one, realize that love is a choice, not a feeling. Okay? You know this. Love is a choice, not a feeling. Ask anybody that's been married for more than 6 years, and you realize love is a choice, not a feeling. Right? The feelings are awesome, and they help you tolerate the person you marry. Until you say, well, I'm stuck with them now, and no, I'm kidding. No, you make a choice. Right? Love is a choice. Marriage, a whole new world of sight, sound, and smell. Oh, right, I'm kidding. Where'd you go there? Love sticks around. I mean, it's a choice, right? It's a choice. Every day you've got to make a choice to love somebody because, that's what love is. It's for and with somebody. And when you're for somebody, you know they're going to make stupid choices and you still are for them, because if it's just a feeling, the feelings go away really quick, right? When they do something really stupid. To be with someone, even in those hard times, it's a choice, and without bailing. So to practice stubborn love, guys, we got to be for and with our God when he makes us uncomfortable. We got to be for and with God, and by default, or not, by extension rather, for and with each other. We got to practice stubborn love for and with each other. It's more than a feeling. Jesus shows us this when he even goes to the cross. Stubborn love for us, people who couldn't care at all before we met him. Stubborn love, okay? The Bible is full of it. The second piece of this is that stubborn love sticks around. Stubborn love sticks around. Jesus asked his 12 closest friends, are you leaving too? Jesus asks us that as well. Are you leaving too? Are you going to stick around? Are you going to stay here and practice stubborn love? No relationship can be built upon a fear of abandonment. No relationship can be built upon fear of the other leaving. It's just unstable soil. I remember growing up in the Nazarene church out in Kinnear, Wyoming, right? You blink, you miss it. My friends, my brother and I, we were little guys. We were out playing. It was dark. It was like a Sunday night worship service. We were out playing, and my family owned a Datsun 210. You remember Datsuns? Little cars this big, right? Datsun 210. It was an oven on wheels. And there was another couple in the church that had a very similar Datsun 210. And it was dark in the parking lot, and I saw this Datsun 210 car pulling out of their spot. And in fear, I thought my parents were leaving me. They'd forgotten me. And off I run, pound on the head. Oh, hi. You're not mom and dad. Fearing that they were leaving me in church. No good, solid relationship, no world change, no life change can ever happen when people are afraid of someone leaving. Stubborn love sticks around. Don't even mention it. Don't even threaten. Because once you sow that seed, it begins to germinate and grow. Don't even threaten to leave. Stubborn love sticks around. It's a choice. We remember Jesus telling the story of the seeds. The man, the farmer, sowing the seeds of the kingdom, right? And some of the seeds fell among rocky soil, Jesus said in the story. And in the rocky soil, they sprung up really quick. The shoots sprung up, oat grass, sprung up really fast. But then it died because it had no root. Let us not be those who spring up fast in our warm feelings and then bail and leave. Let us not hold God hostage. Let us not hold God hostage to our presence. Let us not hold the church hostage to our presence. Let us stick around. I've heard so many stories of people being angry at God and leaving, right? One that I think of is a man I know of who, when he was a little boy, he believed in God. He believed in the power of prayer. His grandfather became sick to dying, and little boy prayed that Grandpa would live. Grandpa died. Little boy became very angry that God did not save Grandpa. And to this day, some 3 decades plus later, will not believe, will not go to church. Because we hold this stick, this yardstick, this measuring rod up to God, and we say, God, you're not good enough, God. You're not doing what I want you to, God. And you see, God, the mark's up here and you're rather down here, and so I think you're not worth it. I'm not staying. I'm angry at you. And out the door we go. Now, I appreciate that people believe in God so very much that they would want him to do what they ask. But when we think that we can control God and all of those things, then we put ourselves above God, don't we? And we do harm to ourselves and to God and to other people. And so I'd encourage you to stick around. If you believe and you've been angry at God, maybe you're holding some grudge at church people or God or something, I would encourage you to examine closely what rod you are holding up, right? And where you got the rod. Some people say that's not fair. Well, whose fair are you talking about? Because there's lots of fairs, isn't there? There's lots of fairs. So, here we go. Let's wind this all up. Love, stubborn love, is greater than my pride. Love is greater than your pride. Love is greater than my opinion. Love is greater than your opinion. If we are to be Jesus' people, if this church will do any good in the world, which I believe it has been called by God to do, if we are going to make a difference, if we're going to turn the La Crescent area on its head in Jesus' name, we are going to have to do a few things. Number one, stubborn love should define this church. Stubborn love should define this church. Everything that we do should be for and with each other, for and with God. We should be those who love each other stubbornly and not split the church because we believe in green carpet versus red carpet, not believe in curtains versus no curtains. We should be those who believe in loving one another for and with, and we choose to stick around and we choose to love, even though the other people are jerks, right? I mean, that's just kind of it. We need to realize that we're jerks most of the time too. When you think somebody else is being a jerk, you're probably just as equally as much as one, and that goes for me as well. So we need to be a church that is permeated with stubborn love, people who choose to stick around and people who choose to love in the good and in the bad. Second thing that this church must do is be a church of radical forgiveness. Radical forgiveness. Jesus didn't give you terribly a whole lot of commands, but one of the big ones that he did give, he said, you're going to forgive or I'm not going to forgive you. You better forgive or you are not forgiven anything. Because when we don't forgive, when we hold on to that grudge and that anger, we are putting ourselves above God, who gladly forgives, gladly welcomes. And we think that we are so right that we are willing to destroy someone else. Jesus says, if you will not forgive, you will not be forgiven. This church must be a place of radical forgiveness. And when you forgive and when I forgive, it doesn't mean that you're any less right. It means that you're choosing to forgive. It doesn't make that other person any less guilty. It means you are choosing to forgive. Now, pardon me for just a second. And when we forgive, we are breaking down the walls. We're breaking down the walls that build up between us that the evil one loves to see. I'm sure each of you have seen a church with unforgiveness, have run into people with unforgiveness in their hearts. And they don't reflect Jesus into the world. They reflect anger and bitterness and arrogance. This church must be a place of radical forgiveness. And somewhat like that, number 3, this place must be a place of love for those you disagree with. This must be a church of love for those you disagree with. In today's United States, it's in vogue to hate people and shout people down who disagree with you. Not so with the church. This is God's grand social experiment. This is God's great experiment where we are those who can actually get along with one another. Go figure. We are to be those who are self-sacrificing and loving of others. We are to be those who practice stubborn love and love those we disagree with. We are to be those who care for those we disagree with. The Apostle Paul wrote to the church in Galatia, be careful that you don't bite and devour one another, because it will destroy you. How many churches have we seen that like to bite and devour one another through gossip and hatred and just backroom meetings? Bite and devour one another. Be careful, for that will destroy us. And finally, let us be completely devoted to one another. Let us be completely devoted to one another and stick around. Let us be devoted to one another so much that you know I've got your back, that I know you've got my back, that no matter what winds may blow, we are for and with each other. Let us be those people who are not carrying the constant threat of abandonment or our own pride. Let us not be those who are willing to jump ship at the least thing. Let us be those who stick around. Let us be those who are committed to one another. Because when we are fully committed to each other, we can be fully committed to our God. When we are fully committed to our God, we are fully committed to His mission in this world. When we are committed to that mission, we are world changers. And this church will not just be pew setters who think it's nice to be nice. We will be radical, world-changing people who go out and love the unlovable, who lift up the brokenhearted, who heal the wounds that darkness has created. Let us be those people today. Amen.